Hello and welcome back to this channel. Today we're going to be talking about confidence. I think it quite nicely links back to the last video, the second to last video, about motivation and willpower and basically discipline at large. So first of all, let's talk about why. Well, confidence is important for all areas of success, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your work, whether it's anything. Basically, your level of confidence is directly linked to how successful you are in life. And there's kind of a myth around confidence that it's kind of that you're born with it, like the very stereotypical confident person in a movie that, really, if we'd be looking at it from like a more neutral perspective, it would be probably that person is displaying some kind of overconfidence, or the kind of confidence that if you see like a beautiful woman, oh, she must be super confident. But this is technically not at all what confidence is really about, because you can have the most beautiful person and they are confident in their looks, but probably depending on what they're wearing, how they feel about themselves that day, how much body they're showing, which parts of their body they're showing, for example, or like depending on if there's somebody else there that they consider more beautiful, for example. So basically this myth of that you're born with confidence, and then also as far as for confidence, think about what is your why for what it would look like in your life to be more confident, and what kind of confidence you think would be most important for you and would be most valuable to you, and why. How would it change your life to be more confident in that area? Then moving on to the second part is about understanding confidence and self-esteem. So we're also going to be talking about self-esteem here because they are kind of interrelated. I mean, a lot of these psychological topics are interrelated in general, but I'm going to get into that. So confidence, the word comes from the Greek or Latin word fides, which means conviction. So yeah, how much conviction do you have in what you're doing? It's about trust in your abilities. So like I said, that's very much situational. It very much depends on the circumstances, about the things. For example, if you're somebody that is very confident as a swimmer, then probably if you go to an MMA class, you don't feel very confident, even though you are very confident in one area of sports. So it doesn't translate. It's very situational, and it's like I said, it's a skill. And it's also always learned. Like nobody really gets born with an inherent sense of confidence in any specific area. You can have a little bit more confidence in your abilities because that's learned over your life, and you can think, oh, okay, it was drilled into me during childhood, so I inherently have more of it. But no, it's learned behavior from your childhood. Then in that case, self-esteem is about how much you value yourself and how much you like yourself. So it's more of a self-worth or like self-acceptance. And this one is typically a little bit more stable and more internal. Like if you have from your childhood a higher self-esteem because your parents gave that to you or they instilled that in you, then that's typically a little bit more stable across time. And then the other way around, if you have a really low sense of self-esteem or of self-worth, then typically that's also relatively stable. It doesn't mean you can't unlearn it or relearn, to have more self-esteem or to like yourself more, but it's just more stable across time versus confidence. And these two are really interlinked with each other. They kind of create feedback loops for each other. So this can be a positive feedback loop or a negative feedback loop. So ideally, you want to try to get on an upward swing and kind of use the aspect of feedback loop to over time catapult you up, basically. So self-esteem feeds confidence. If you feel more worthy, then you also are more willing to take certain risks or to take certain steps that maybe otherwise you would feel like, oh, I can't do this. There's a little trick here that is from Brian Tracy. I was watching some of his lectures. All the links, by the way, I'm now putting in the comments of the videos that I'm referring to in the video that I'm talking about. And also I'm going to do this retroactively for my last few videos. So you can check out one of the links is going to be that lecture that he gave. So one relatively easy trick, if you know, for example, that you have relatively low self-esteem, you can use certain tricks like saying, I like myself before you need to do something. Like if you work in sales, for example, or if you need to have an awkward conversation and you're feeling this sense of nervousness, the sense of, oh, I'm I'm not good enough for this, or I don't know, whatever doubts or fears you have, then going in and saying, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, can be really good to kind of just give yourself, first of all, that sense of acceptance to yourself. And the more conviction you have with saying it, the more you can actually find things that you like about yourself. So you're not just saying it and it's really not true, but still with repetition, you can kind of reprogram yourself. So if you can kind of start to create that like beginning feedback loop of, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And then it's easier to be more confident. So that's one trick. And then the second feedback loop is that confidence builds self-esteem. So if you are succeeding at difficult things, that reinforces your sense of that you're capable and that you're valuable and that you inherently have worth. So again, this can also go the wrong way. You know, if you are failing at stuff, then you start to feel more shit about yourself. You feel less valuable. You like yourself less, and you're kind of going down this downward spiral. But I think if you're relatively good at rewarding yourself, then it's not super hard to kind of help yourself to get into an upward spiral. Here, another kind of definition from Mel Robbins that I really found interesting is that confidence is an embodied action. It's a willingness to try. It's not about succeeding. It's not about being confident, quote unquote, as we think about it in whatever you're trying to do. It's about, in the worst case, it can be about failing forward, but usually you don't only fail forward, you know, like you have successes and you have challenges. So just that willingness to try and that conviction of, even if I don't win 100% of the time, or even if I don't succeed exactly as I would like to succeed, you can still have you kind of build confidence through the challenges. Yeah. And this idea that, you know, confident people are always winning is just absolutely not true. Like, it doesn't matter who you talk to. Even people that are, for example, really good public speakers, if you talk to them about their journey of public speaking, probably they also really struggled with feeling comfortable. And yeah, this basically applies to everything. So confidence really is try to get yourself into that mindset of understanding that everybody has a learning curve as far as being more confident and kind of embodying that. And it's more about the willingness to go through that uncomfortableness. Here also the kind of the growth mindset that I talked about in my last video on motivation is really important. So basically your ability to succeed over time and to keep exposing yourself to facing potential challenges or potential downfalls is about how you frame things in your mind. Do you frame a challenge as, oh, look, I knew I was going to fail at this, you know, I knew that I was going to suck miserably, faceplant immediately? Or are you going to be like, this is normal. No, but Rome wasn't built in a day. Even the most successful person, you know, wasn't pushed out of the birth canal in that way. So yeah, it's really mostly about, watch that video if you want to hear a little bit more about motivation and discipline. 100%, as I already said, plays into this. But yeah, I kind of go more in depth in that video on the growth mindset, but that will pay you dividends in life in general. So that's really, really important to have. So really it's about a willingness of doing things that make you uncomfortable or that you have some inherent resistance to. And it doesn't matter if you're confident now in 5 or 10 areas in your life. It doesn't mean that probably you've built that muscle of confidence, so it's easier for you to start a new thing, but it doesn't mean you don't experience the same doubts that somebody that maybe hasn't built that confidence even in more than like 2-3 areas. But generally everybody has something that they're confident in. So also try to look at those things that you have achieved and how you have achieved them. And those can help you to kind of keep yourself grounded when you're kind of being tough on yourself or when you are facing challenges. So in this next part, we're going to be talking about the psychology of confidence. Again, here, growth mindset is one of the key aspects you can have, including how you talk to yourself. Like I said, go back to the last video, but down to like if you have thoughts of like I shouldn't or I can't, reframe that as I am learning to do this. Yeah, basically. Then another aspect of the psychology is authenticity. So real confidence usually comes to a certain extent from really knowing yourself. So instead of pretending you are somebody that you're not, it's more about accepting yourself for who you are and living as your real self. Because then you don't need other people's approval or validation. And it's easier to have real compassion for yourself and to build more resilience. Then this next part is about self-compassion. This is again about kind of realizing that everybody struggles. And this version of confidence that we see from people that they show is usually after they've already gone through the hard parts, or people are much less willing to show the hard parts. And that's fine also for them, because you shouldn't beat yourself up publicly, you know, like you shouldn't beat yourself up mentally either, but certainly, I mean, there is an aspect to showing vulnerabilities, and that can be strengthening as well, and that can lead to more resilience. But at the same time, if you want to be a confident person, you should really focus on rewarding the good things that you do, and like a lot, like reward yourself a lot. Okay, it helps rewiring your brain. Doesn't matter how you need to do it. If you need to actually like make like a checklist on the things that you've achieved, and then be like, oh, I'm good. That's what I did. I mean, obviously, if you're trying to lose weight, don't reward yourself with like fast food, for example, you know, but find rewards that work for you. Then also part of this is the thoughts and beliefs. They shape your self-trust and your self-worth, especially emotionally charged ones. So if you can really kind of revel in the good, rewarding emotions, then that can be really really helpful to rewire your brain for more of that upward trend. So focus on your strengths, and don't focus on your weaknesses. Focus on the fact that you're working on doing something, instead of focusing on that you're not good at it yet. So for this last part of the psychology of confidence is about competence and mastery. So basically, competence is about skill building. I already mentioned this. Confidence is a skill. You learn it over time. Nobody is born with it. But the best way of feeling confident is getting good at something. And the best way of becoming more confident is working on something and kind of watching yourself achieve that thing. So if you're better at one thing, you're better at other things. Then for mastery, it's about effort, not struggle. So prioritize effort and not struggling. Our brain really doesn't like to struggle that much, and then it becomes way, way harder to be positive and rewarding of our successes. So it's not about working harder and harder and harder. It's about working more in a balanced way for you. And also that understanding of neuroplasticity, so that it's not always that you want to learn something or you want to go more hours to the gym to get better at it. For example, if you're trying to learn like a dance move, there is 100% a case to saying that I'm going to work on something an hour today, and then I'm going to let my brain do the integrating and figuring things out also, and then I come back tomorrow and it's already going to be easier. So like I said, it's not about working harder, it's about kind of working smarter and more balanced. Now moving on, we're going to be talking about the confidence and discipline connection. So basically, confidence comes from repeated proof of the fact that you're capable of doing something. So the self-trust, the liking yourself, leads to confidence. And discipline also isn't about grinding harder, but it's about making things automatic. It's about simplifying things into your routine or into the things that you do, period. No discussion, no mental discussion. You don't have to, like I mentioned in the last video also, like if you are somebody that loves going to the gym, then you don't need to wrestle yourself out of the house every time to convince yourself to go out of the gym. No, it's automatic. You will hear if you talk to people, and even I do. Like, I like going to the gym. I don't force myself at all. It's really not that hard. It's not about punishing yourself. You might have to go through a certain phase of adversity, you know, where you have to be consistent with yourself and you have to be disciplined in that, but that's not your forever reality. So if you're not good at discipline yet, then it's also more difficult to be confident. We already touched on this a few times, but basically if you tell yourself, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week, and then every time you get to that time where you told yourself, okay, this is when I'm going to go to the gym, you are making excuses, or something is wrong, or blah blah blah, and you don't end up going, then every time you're telling yourself, I can't even do the things that I set out to do for myself. So in that way, you're going on a negative feedback loop, and you should really try to avoid those. Even if you have to set really realistic or really low goals, quote unquote low goals, it's still better to achieve the things that you set yourself out to do than having these high standards for yourself, or these high goals that you're just going to continuously fail at, because you're telling yourself over and over, I'm not good at doing the things that I set out to do, that I value in my life. And you're telling yourself that you're not somebody who follows through. So you don't have the self-trust, so you don't have the self-worth, so you don't have the confidence. Yeah, well then basically just try to avoid that at all costs. Even if for some time you have to set yourself really, really small goals. Like, basically this is where people like Jordan Peterson say, just make your bed in the morning. Like, if that's a relatively easy thing to do, or find something else that is relatively easy for you to do, but actually do that thing every time you set out to do that specific thing, because you're setting yourself up for success. You're aiming up, you're trying to find things to be good at, and you are watching yourself succeed at doing that. And again, you're on that positive feedback loop, so you can add more challenging kind of actions or steps down the line, and they will also become easier, because you're already proving to yourself that you are somebody that can do the things that they set out to do for themselves. Now we're moving on to the next part. It's about overcoming barriers. It's basically about identifying and overcoming the things that are holding you back. These can be different things. For example, imposter syndrome, which is about feeling like a fraud or downplaying your achievements. Or the second one is perfectionism and fear of failure. So like a fear of judgment. Third one is the comparison trap. And the fourth one is guilt and unworthiness. So for the first one, for imposter syndrome, look at past wins. For example, if you want to be more courageous, if the thing that you want to be more confident at requires you to be more courageous, then write down the things that you already are courageous in your life about. Maybe nothing comes to mind, just right now, even for me. And I did this like a few weeks ago, and when I heard this first, I was like, that's a good one. But typically, if you think about it, it doesn't really matter if it's something small. It doesn't really matter if it's like, some people are afraid of going outside. You are probably just walking outside and you're crossing the street without being afraid of getting hit by a truck every time that you cross the street. So it can be really small wins, but focus on that feeling of, in this, I am courageous, so I can also build this courage in something else. Then for the second one, for perfectionism and fear of failure, really try to avoid an all or nothing mindset. Doing something is better than perfection, or than waiting to be perfect at something, because you don't just become a master at something without doing it first, or without working at it first. So if you really have that really high expectation of yourself, try to reason that out of yourself for some parts. For example, for YouTube, for me as well, I had this phase before I started uploading videos where I was like, yeah, but like the people that I like are so much better at it, and maybe they have better information, or maybe it's not. I didn't really let myself run with it, but those were some of the things in the back of my mind. So address your negative beliefs and really be honest with yourself in those, because with the YouTube example for me, what I ended up kind of realizing is that even if I watch somebody that I don't think has the best information, or like, even if, kind of a similar example, or even if in traffic I'm somebody like does a maneuver that I think they're really dumb for, and I get really angry in the moment, I don't think back. Same way with the YouTube video. If I watch one that I don't like, or that I think is not that interesting, or didn't have that much valuable information, I don't think, wow, you really just wasted my time out here. I just move on. I just stop watching it, or maybe I have a second where I'm like, wow, this was really not that interesting. But I don't go through my day and think about, oh, this person just stole my time. No, ultimately they didn't. I did, for myself. And the same if you're scrolling through Instagram Reels, you don't know what the next reel is going to be about. You don't know the next TikTok that you're going to come across. And if you don't like it, whether the first whatever, then you just move on. It's like we tend to then project all this really excessive feeling. But even if you think about like your favorite creators, like you probably don't have that many. Like if you see somebody on your timeline, then you're like, oh, I like them. But it's not like you go around thinking, wow, this person's my favorite person, you know? So basically just try to kind of find a way of reframing it in your mind and addressing those negative beliefs or those kind of fears that want to come up. Because people really, most of the time, they don't care. They don't care. They care about themselves, you know? Doesn't matter if you're self-conscious about your body or how you look that day or whatever. If you're walking around the city and you think, oh my God, I just look hideous. I'm sure all these people are judging me. If that's the energy you're walking around with, then you're going to feel like it, whether it's true or not. So really try to avoid having this like super high expectations that basically nobody can meet. And also kind of integrate that confidence is gained in the fire, basically, like in the adversity, in the struggle, or not even the struggle, but in the, you know, in the getting up again after something knocked you down. So it's not about just cruising and then becoming confident. No, it's about doing the tough things and persisting through the adversity and building that resilience that really makes you confident in like a true sense, where you actually then are like, this is me, and I have gone through the ups and the downs, so now I'm confident in XYZ. Then with a comparison trap, I don't know if I already talked about this, maybe I have. But basically, depends on who you compare yourself to. Depends on, like, we live in this time now where on the internet you can compare yourself to the best people ever. But imagine like 100 years ago, whatever, when, you know, all you had to compare yourself to were the people that were actually in your life, were the people that you actually maybe read about in the newspaper, and not this collection of all the best people all over the world that only show their best sides. If social media, for example, is something that makes you less confident about yourself. Like I also went through a phase of that when I was watching a lot of fitness videos, like before, like 2019, 2020, and like I don't know, followed a lot of like fit girls on Instagram. And for some time it was inspiring me, like they were giving me exercise, motivation, whatever. But I also had a time where then it just became like every time I'm comparing my body to these girls who have a completely unrealistic body to me, you know? So I did eventually, I had to remind myself that A, social media is not real. People don't show all the worst parts of themselves. Also, social media in and of itself is neutral. It's not trying to get you, it's not trying to destroy your confidence. It depends, it does prey on like our weaknesses to a certain extent, but you can also use it to benefit you immensely. So what I had to do was I just unfollowed them all, but I was attached to them, you know, like I was like, no, I don't follow these people that I love seeing their stuff. But whoever makes you feel less confident or makes you feel inferior or makes you feel like you're just doing so much worse, just remove them. And if you have to create a second Finsta account where nobody's following you, nobody knows that it even exists, just so that you can, like, that's what I did, just so that you can, you know, hold on to all these people that you used to like following but that don't make you feel good, then do that. Or if every time you post you feel like it makes you feel inferior, then remove all the people that you think are contributing to you feeling like you're doubting yourself when you're posting. I also did that. I went from 1,000 followers to like 250. I don't care. At least now if I post, those are not people where I feel judged or that I don't know, you know, or that whatever. That's completely fine. And try to use social media or like whatever it is that you're comparing yourself, try to use it for good. Like try to have the things that inspire you, try to have the things that motivate you. For me, that was more nature stuff, more quotes. Like I'm a really wordy type of person, and or these days it's more like hot girl stuff, you know, like natural remedies or like dancing or whatever it is that inspires you. Try to be really strict about the things that you're taking in. If you're taking in garbage all day, well then you don't have to be surprised that your thoughts are garbage, that your vibes are garbage, that things are garbage in your environment. And then for the last one, for guilt and unworthiness, Basically, stop carrying around past mistakes. You are not who you were in the past that you're beating yourself up for. In fact, the fact that you're beating yourself up means probably you wouldn't do it again. You wouldn't do that thing that you're beating yourself up over again. So it means you already are no longer that person. And in fact, you can be extremely grateful for having learned from it, for not making that mistake again. And also, if you can accept that other people change, there's no reason to be super harsh on yourself. You can also change. So basically, just forgive yourself. It doesn't mean, this can mean that you also have to forgive like a bunch of other people around you, whether it's, like your family or like your environment or something else. Maybe you have to go through all of that, but maybe also you're able to forgive yourself because you realize that this is a part of learning and growing, and everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. And also, it's about acting despite doubt. It's not about not having doubt. It's not about always feeling positive or always feeling great. It's about still doing things even when you are not feeling the best version of yourself, period. Now I'm going to summarize like a bunch of more strategies, ideas, and concepts around confidence. So first one is one step after another. And as soon as you take that one step, the next one will become clear. It's about small, actionable steps that you can take, that you believe in yourself, that you are able to do, and just doing that. And trusting that the next step will become clear. If, for example, for some time I was obsessed with like ultra marathon runners, these people who don't do like marathons, like 40 kilometers, but like 100 kilometers plus. And basically all of them get to that point where they just focus on the next step, the next step, the next step, and just get out of their own way. Don't overthink things. Just do things. Just engage with the thing that keeps you scared. And even if it's just small steps for a while, if you continue doing that, you will get to making better strides, and you will grow your confidence in the meantime, and then the strides will become easier, and maybe then eventually you can make small jumps, like it's all fine. You are completely allowed to have a process. You are even allowed to fail at times in the process. Another kind of trick that you can do to overcome procrastination, or to overcome like that initial fear, is counting down from 5. Okay, if I have to public speak and I'm going to be on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just do it. Just fucking do it. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if you're going to be awkward, just do it. Also, another trick for that is, for example, if you're socially awkward, just mention it. Like, sorry, I can be a little bit awkward sometimes. People are mostly worried about themselves. So if you just bring it up to the light, and if you just mention it, most likely they will be like, oh, you're not that awkward. Doesn't matter. And you don't feel like you're hiding this thing from people that is, just a secret that they may or may not find out about, like it's not that deep. People have their own worries, and they're mostly worried about those. Then another trick along like the counting down from 5 is just give yourself 20 seconds of confidence. If you were confident for only 20 seconds, what would that look like in that thing that you're trying to achieve? Or take on the role of somebody that would be confident in doing whatever you're trying to do for that time. Like whether it's some celebrity that is just always seems confident, or whether it's like some person from your personal life that you look up to, that you think, wow, they're so good at doing this one thing and they never seem to doubt themselves. Probably if you talk to them, that's not true. Maybe they've built that muscle over time that now they barely doubt themselves anymore, but it's just not human to think that you're never going to doubt yourself. Then another thing, again with the self-talk, is saying certain things. Saying, I can do it, against fear. If you're feeling afraid, just repeat to yourself, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. The same way that I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. Just your brain hearing that, and the more you can actually embrace it, and the more you can actually engage positive emotions with that, the stronger it's going to be. And then another example for that specific one is when you feel under compulsion, for example, like I started to go to like a kickboxing class, and I'm not really a class person. I'm like an 80% introvert. I don't really like to go to class, especially when I am obviously the one with the least experience, but I didn't have to go. I chose to go. Like, tell yourself that. You don't have to do this. You're choosing to do this. And in fact, you're doing great for being able to to do this and for going every single week. And even if in the future this is not going to be, the end all be all, this might not be your final destination. Maybe next year you're not going to do that thing anymore, but it's probably going to teach you something that you needed for whatever else you have coming up in your life or whatever else you want to achieve. And then next, like humans are kind of unique in their ability to have learned helplessness. So for example, if you do an experiment with mice and you give them the scent of the cheese in this one tunnel, but really the cheese is in the other tunnel, then the mouse will spend like maybe 5 times going into the wrong tunnel, and eventually it will go into the right tunnel and it will find the cheese and it will be like, yay, look at me go. But usually for us humans, we would probably go 1 or 2 times, then we think, damn, I'm really incapable, I can't even do this, and we just beat ourselves up. Yeah, well, then you're in that negative feedback loop, and and if you're telling yourself you're stuck, then you are stuck. If you're telling yourself this is an opportunity and you can learn through this or you can grow from it, then you can. Whatever you tell yourself usually is true for that person. So again, this is where the attitude of continuous learning and reflection is going to pay you absolute dividends in your life. If you have the attitude that from everything you can learn and from everything you can reflect and become an even better person, then that's way better than trying to be perfect in anything. Then for this next one, it's about kind of being mindful of the people you're taking along. It doesn't mean, we all know those people that are maybe inherently a little bit more negative, and maybe we've been those people in the past even, but you don't have to think that just because you have somebody in your life that is more negative, that has to drag you down. But at the same time, if you are trying to become confident in something and you have this one person in your life that always complains about it, well, that can drag you down, and that can give you in your mind like the permission to also suck at it. And if that's where you're at, then maybe distance yourself from that person at that time. Doesn't mean you have to be like, you are always so negative or whatever. No, but there can be an aspect to where you want to work on one specific thing, and that having this kind of person around always leaves you more idle than you would want to be. And then try to be careful and try to find a way of kind of limiting those people, or finding a way that you don't take their perspective too hard. Like if you already are disciplined, it probably doesn't bother you that much if you have an undisciplined person around. It's not going to change your discipline. But if you're just working on becoming disciplined and you have somebody that's always saying they're going to do these huge things and they never end up doing it, well, then it's probably not so good to engage with that person a lot in that time. But don't judge them either. Like everybody has their process. You don't know what anybody else is going through. Like it's so difficult to really know oneself. So try to really not come from a place of judgment and say, you, that's not helpful either. Then this next one is about be prepared. Like if you're nervous, for example, if you have a presentation, prepare. Make sure that you actually have done it a few times, because you are helping your brain. You're exposing your brain to the nerves of that specific situation, and you're giving it more comfort in that situation. So don't underestimate actually preparing. And it can be also mental preparation, like visualizing a certain thing that you're trying to go through, and that can be in and of itself also very effective. Then also remind yourself of why it's worth trying or why it's worth doing. Even if it's not your end goal, it's probably part of your journey. And if you look back in hindsight, if you can already adopt like a kind of a hindsight perspective, then you can realize even in the moment as you're going through it, that probably down the line, this is going to have contributed to something else that you're going to be doing in your future. Then this next one is maybe a little bit more difficult to kind of just internalize from the place of not actually going through it. And it would suck if you're actually going through it, but you can kind of find a smaller thing and kind of try to use it for yourself in that way. So basically think about, what would you do if you knew you would die soon? Or it sounds kind of morbid. It really sounds kind of morbid, but basically when you hear people that gone through like a near-death experience or that had like cancer or whatever, you hear them have like a new profound sense of meaning and a sense of like appreciating every day and living as if it's your last. So imagine yourself if you go through something like you have a health scare, and imagine you're thinking in that moment like, what if I did die? You know, like, what if something is going on and I'm dying in like half a year from now, or like in 3 months from now, or like in a year from now? Like, what would that change in your reality? What would be those things that you feel like you haven't done because you have been putting it off for now or whatever? But what would be the things that come to your mind that you think, oh, I would be sad if I had never even tried or attempted at doing XYZ? And you can kind of use that energy of, well, if I were dying, then I don't have to be worried about what people are going to think about me because I will be dead soon, you know? Or if I were on my deathbed, then I don't want to have regrets, so I'm going to do XYZ. Or so I'm just going to put myself out there, even if I am uncomfortable in the moment, and try to do XYZ. Another thing that can help is kind of adopting like another version of yourself, like a future version of yourself. If you know, for example, you're doing this one thing, and you know you're committed to doing it for a year, even if you're uncomfortable, what would the version of you that's already 1 year in, like, what would they say? Like, they wouldn't tell you, you're stuck. They would be like, you should watch me now. Like, even though it really feels awkward at the moment, but a year from now, you're going to be like, damn, look at me go. Then another trick is using body language to infer attitude. So if you're lacking confidence, for example, and you're in like a sales call or whatever, and you're sitting there like this, you're like, yeah, can I? Okay, roll back your shoulders, breathe in. Like, you are confident. I like myself. Use all these different tricks, laughing, smiling. Like, you can. Your body is not living in isolation. You can use your physical body to also help your mental. The same way, if you feel shit, then you look more shit, you know? Or like you like have the body language of feeling shit. So the other way around, you can work on having a better, more confident body language, and then that will make you better, more confident, you know? Then another kind of like mental trick that I use is using this phrase specifically: what you can be, you must be. Like, what's the other option? You just want to be like the next year version of you and thinking, damn, I wish I had started last year doing this. I wonder what it would be like to be 1 year in at this point and not feel like, oh, I still have all this to do, like the first step to take, you know? Like, I still have the first step to take and I've just been pushing it off for a year. At that point, again, you're on that really negative feedback loop. So whatever you can be, you must be. And I think the sooner you do it, the longer you can benefit from it. And then lastly, I already touched on this one, confident people support other people and they celebrate other people. So celebrate other people and, you know, they will start celebrating you as well, especially if they're also confident or if they're growing in confidence. And then you can not just create that positive feedback loop within yourself, but also in relation with others as well. So now we're at the end of this video. The conclusion is, confidence is a skill. Nobody was, like I said, pushed out of the birth canal and just came into this world like a confident baby. That's not at all the case. It's all learned behavior. And also really try to call yourself out for that image of confidence that you have in your head. Like I said, this overconfident jock that, you know, if we see that in real life, most people don't like overconfident people. They actually prefer moderately confident people, because an overly confident person, it's like, what are you hiding? Like, basically, you don't have to be this perfection of confidence either. You just have to kind of find a way that works for you, that feeds you, and that you can reward yourself for doing. And the really, really good thing is that, yeah, confidence is a skill that you build, but it's a habit that you keep. So the first time you're building a habit, it takes 3 weeks to 2 months. But if you've done it a few times, if you build a few habits, then probably the 10th time, the 20th time, it's not going to take you that long, because you already know you're capable of doing it and you already trust yourself. And also in confidence, the good thing is that you're building self-trust, you're building self-acceptance, you're building self-worth, you're building all these positive feedback loops for all these other topics that are going to pay you dividends in your life in general. And yeah, that's something really worthwhile doing. So that's it. This is the end of this video.